Okay, have you ever watched any of those fix and flip TV shows on like HGTV where, the team goes into the city, finds a real beat up house and dumps a bunch of money into it to fix it up, and then they flip it onto the market and sell it for a profit, right? We've all seen those shows. I'm sure you've seen those shows. In the video today, what I want to tell you about is the craziest fix and flip story you've probably ever heard. Before we get into that, for those of you who are joining for the first time, my name is Chris White. I am one of the owners of Creative Investing Club. This is the place where we help people get higher and safer returns with their investment capital than they're getting anywhere else. Now, before I jump into this crazy fix and flip story, if you wouldn't mind here on this Friday afternoon helping me get this video to the top of the social media channels, that would be greatly appreciated. All I ask is that you do a couple things. If you wouldn't mind liking this video, commenting on this video, even if it's just to say hi, and then sharing this video. That would be incredibly valuable for me. I would be forever grateful for your support, and it would really help us get our message out to more people, okay? So without further ado, let's jump into the craziest fix and flip story I think ever. I haven't heard one crazier. There probably is, but I would encourage you to get your popcorn ready because this one's a little bit over the top. So this is years ago when I was first getting into real estate investing, and I was in my business back during the time of this story. I was the guy who would use my marketing skill and my sales skills over the phone to go out into the market and talk to homeowners and buy properties at deep discounts that are off market, meaning they're not listed with a realtor. And so what I would do is I would get the contract for the property, and then I would go find somebody who was a real experienced investor on the rehab side, and I would say, hey, I've got this contract, and I'd be willing to sell you this piece of paper, this contract, for whatever the price would be. And I would try to make anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 by just selling that piece of paper or that contract. Okay. So in this one particular deal, I was talking to the homeowners. They were living in a house that really needed a lot of rehab. They knew that. That's why they didn't want to list it with the realtor, because they didn't have the money to fix it up. And they knew if they put it on the market, they're going to have to pay all the fees to the realtor. It's probably going to sit on the market for a while. And, they wanted to move fast. They wanted to close quickly. They wanted me to give them all cash. So we decided on a price, signed the paperwork. And then I found that investor who wanted to buy that piece of paper from me so that they could do all the rehab. So, excuse me there. I think I had a phone call coming in. So we get the property under contract, and I am working with this investor to get it to the closing table. I've told the sellers what we're doing. They understood the whole process. And the one thing I told the seller, which is going to come up here in a second, is I said, hey, listen, don't move out of your property. Sorry, I got a bunch of phone calls coming in here, and it's freezing up my Instagram Live. So I told the seller, don't move out of your property. Don't buy another property until we close on this. I was very clear about that. So what ended up happening was the closing date on the property got moved 3 times because the investor I was working with was having trouble getting their capital together. So here we are. The 3rd time it gets moved. I promised the seller, hey, it's going to close. We just need another week. It's scheduled to close on Friday around 11 o'clock in the morning. So I'm sitting at my desk. It's now noon. My phone rings. It's the investor. I'm expecting the investor to say, hey, we just closed. Everything's great. And what ended up happening was the investor told me they couldn't close on the house. They couldn't get the capital together. It wasn't going to work. They were bailing out of the deal. So now I'm talking to the seller. The seller's on the phone crying to me. She's telling me they moved out of the house. They bought another house. they were now living in that house and they needed the money from this property to pay for this house that they just moved into. And so, I'm sitting there and I feel responsible for this deal. And I felt like I needed to close this on my own. So what I decided to do was close this deal with my own money using the inspection report that I got from the investor who was supposed to close on the property. All right. And the inspection report basically said that this property needed $35,000 of rehab to get it to full market value. So great, we're going to do $35,000 of rehab. No big deal. At this point in the whole story, I'm actually excited. I'm like, you know what? It's time for me to transition from being the guy who sells paper to being the guy who actually does the rehab and gets these projects done. So I was really excited. So I went to the property. I had a bunch of contractors, actually 5 contractors, come out to the property, walk the property to give me their bids. This is when things started to get interesting because the first 4 contractors that showed up all gave me a bid somewhere between $52,000. I remember that was the low bid, and the high bid was $78,000. I remember. And now I started to panic a bit because I knew I only had $35,000 in the budget. I was trying to figure out where am I going to get at least another $20,000 if I was going to hire the low bid contractor. Well, then a 5th contractor shows up, and it's this woman with her boyfriend. They show up and they walk the property and they come to me and they say, hey, we can get this done for $34,000. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is awesome. My first thought was these other contractors were probably just, highballing me. And this contractor was the one that was coming in with the best and the most appropriate number because I was trusting the inspection that the previous investor gave me. They know what they're doing. They said it's going to be $35,000. This must be the honest contractor. Those contractors are trying to take advantage of me. Let's go with this contractor who gave me the $34,000 bid. So I award them the contract. Work starts. They tell me that they're going to have this project done in 6 weeks. Okay, so I believe we closed on this property. Gosh, it's been so long ago, but I believe it was the month of September. So in my mind, we were going to have this thing done and sold by Christmas. We were expecting to make somewhere around $45,000 to maybe $55,000 if everything went well and we got the best offer on the property. So the contractor starts working. I'm sending the contractor money every week. Everything seems to be going well until all of a sudden the contractor calls me one day and says to me that somebody tried to break into the house, which, in the world of real estate investing, when you're rehabbing properties that are vacant, hearing that somebody tried to break into the house is pretty common. So I was like, okay, do they steal anything? Did they damage anything? My contractor, who was a woman, said, no, everything's fine. I just wanted to give you a heads up. Somebody tried to break in. I've got everything secure. No big deal. I'm like, great. Awesome. Let's get back to work. A week goes by. Contractor calls me again. I remember I picked the phone up and she's all frantic and she's hooting and hollering and says, I said, what's wrong? Like, what's going on? And she said, somebody tried to break into the house again. They busted the lock and, thankfully nothing stolen, but I'm really upset that, this keeps happening. And I said, well, what do you think we should do? We probably should get some cameras. Like, she said, yeah, that's what we should do. Let's get some cameras that we can put up to deter people from breaking in. She actually, looking back on it, this is kind of a tell that I didn't pick up on, but she said, I've already got the cameras picked out. I just texted them to you. If you Venmo me the money, I'll go buy the cameras. I'll put them up in the house. Everything will be good. So I said, yeah, no problem. Send her the money. This was on I remember this was on a Wednesday. So I send her the money. On Thursday, she puts these cameras into the house. And I think we're all good. This is Thursday. She calls me on Saturday, all frantic. And I said, what's going on? She said, somebody broke into the house and they stole everything. And I said, what do you mean they stole everything? She said, they stole my tools. They stole all the new flooring that we bought, all the paint. Like, they stole everything. Excuse me, my phone keeps ringing here. They stole everything. And I said, well, how did they break in? And it was real interesting. Like, she knew down to the detail how they broke in. Without hesitation, she went into this story about how, according to her, they shot a BB through the back window, the door of the window of the back door. They shot a BB through the window. Then she said she thought they tied a string to a fork and fed it through this hole in the window and got the door unlocked. And that's how they got in, according to her. So I said, well, gosh, that sounds really bizarre and interesting. So long story short, I said, okay, well, what do we got to do? Like, let's keep moving. We got to get this house done. Mind you, I haven't shared with you that we're now about 12 weeks into this project. So we're already 6 weeks overdue. No, actually, we were 16 weeks into this project, because I remember we were into the following year. So Christmas had passed. We're into the following year. I'm like, we got to get this project done. And all of a sudden, someone's broken in. So at that point, this contractor stopped answering my phone calls, stopped texting me, stopped responding to me. And I was used to talking to her on a daily basis, multiple times a day on the phone about what's going on, what we need to do, what money she needs, what materials she needs, all the typical things you would expect to happen on a rehab project. She stops responding to me. This is when it starts to get interesting. My spidey senses start going off. Finally, the red flags are going off. The sirens are going off in my brain. And so after 2 weeks of not being able to get a hold of this contractor, mind you, I live in Denver, Colorado. This project was happening in Kansas City, Missouri. So I decided to fly out to Kansas City. My parents live in Kansas City. So my dad and I drive out to the property, and we go into the house, and I'm looking around, trying to see what they stole, what they didn't steal. And my dad says, hey, son, come over here for a second. And he's at the back door. And he says, how did your contractor say they broke into the house? And I said, well, she said they shot a BB through the window, and, they snaked a fork through, and they unlocked the door that way. And my dad says, are you noticing what I'm noticing? And I'm like looking at the back door, and I can see the BB hole through the window. So I was like, it all kind of made sense. Like, what my dad was noticing that I hadn't immediately picked up on was that it was a double pane window on this back door, and the outside pane of the window wasn't broken at all. There was no BB hole through the outside pane of the window. This BB hole was only on the inside pane, or whatever created this hole, whether it was a BB or something else. It looked about the size of a BB, was on the inside of the door. So immediately we realized, okay, you kind of knew what was going on at this point. We had been lied to. This contractor ran off with all of our money. And now we had to scramble to figure out what we're going to do. So kind of the ending of this story is I put a message into a Facebook group of investors that I'm a part of and said, hey, I'm looking for a real good contractor who can help me finish out a project. It's about, 40, 50% done. I need someone to come in and finish this out for me. And this guy private messages me, says, hey, let's jump on the phone and talk. I might be able to help you out. So I get on the phone with him, and he says, hey, tell me what happened. And I talk him through the story, and he goes, that's really weird. And I said, what's weird about it? And then he proceeds to tell me that my contractor had just like the week prior invited him over to a house that she claimed she was going to sell. And so he walked into this house with her, and he's looking around, and he said, in this house, there was all these materials. There was a bathroom vanity, there was paint, there was vinyl plank flooring, like all the material that from my house was in this house. Because he asked me, like, hey, did they steal your bathroom vanity? I'm like, yeah, they did. Like, did they steal your vinyl plank flooring? I'm like, yeah, they did. Did they steal your paint? Did they steal your drywall? Did they steal like all your fixtures, like everything? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, why are you asking me that? He said, your contractor had me in a house that she wanted to sell me, and all those materials were sitting in that house. And I said to her, I would buy the house if she left all the materials. And she agreed. So he's like, I was going to buy this house, And then I went back over there 2 days later to do my final walkthrough, and all the materials were gone. And I asked her about it, and she said, "Oh, I can't sell the materials with the house." So long story short there, I finally hired a contractor. I got the property done. We ended up selling it 9 months later. So we closed on it in September. We ended up, actually it was 12 months later. We sold it the following September. And instead of walking away with $45,000 to $55,000, which was what the math said we would walk away with, thankfully, I was still able to walk away with a profit. It was about $3,000 that we still profited. It's a lot of headache, a lot of stress, a lot of learning experiences happened. So, you know what my mentor told me is the best way to think about this is you just paid for a really expensive seminar. So that was a cool mindset shift for me, and I learned a lot, and was able to sell that property. The good news is in our company, when we're working with our private lenders are our number one clients. Our private lenders always get paid no matter what. So during that entire ordeal, our private lender got their payment every single month. In fact, I'm not even sure our private lender really knew the extent of that story. They might be watching this video and hearing it for the first time. That's not because we keep secrets or anything from our private lenders. It's just most of our private lenders just want their money to show up every month. And as long as it does, they're good. And, we're the easy button. We handle all the headaches, the challenges, the hassles, whatever might happen. And our commitment is to make sure that wire shows up in their bank account every month. And that's what happened. So everybody made money. We didn't make as much as we expected, but the private lender made money plus interest. We made a couple grand and learned a lot, which was probably more valuable than the 40,000 or so we thought we were going to make. The lessons that we learned were actually probably more valuable than that. Being able to look back on where our company is now with all the deals that we've done, hundreds of deals over the last several years. So that's my crazy fix and flip story. Hopefully that was a little bit entertaining for you here on this Friday afternoon. I was going to talk to you about Cornerstone commitment number 4 that we have with our private lenders. I decided since it's Friday, why don't I tell you a story and maybe have a little fun Friday afternoon. So in our next video, I'll talk to you about Cornerstone commitment number 4. And on that note, I got to go get ready. I'm taking my 7-year-old daughter on a daddy-daughter date tonight. We're going to see the Nutcracker. We're going to go get some dinner together. She wants to get sushi, so I'm going to take her for sushi. And then we're going to go see the Nutcracker and just have fun. So I got to get ready for that. I hope you have an incredible Friday evening yourself and a great weekend. And I will see you back here at the beginning of next week in our next video. Bye for now.